It is my pleasure to introduce Sunil Thomas, the co-founder and CEO of Clevertap, who's here to talk about bringing a shift in Lifecycle. You'll tell us what you're going to talk about. All right.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for attending. My name is Sunil Thomas, and I'm co-founder and CEO of a company called Clevertap. Let me tell you what we do. We work with consumer brands, consumer digital mobile first brands ideally, but mobile and websites, to help retain their users for life. We do it by providing a customer data platform where each and every unique user profiles are maintained, unified across devices, call centers, data flows in. You get a 360 view of your user. We provide insights on it. We provide massively strong user segmentation, and we'll talk about that on it. And then we allow you to sort of message your users across multiple channels, push messages, in-app messages, email, text messages, remarketing on Facebook, Google, and things like that. So we have the benefit of working with some large mobile apps, in a few verticals that are really, really growing in worldwide. Hotstar is actually owned by Disney. It's a live sports streaming app. They just last week had the world record for 11.2 million concurrently connected users, the biggest ever for any online live event across the world. Zomato is a food delivery app. They do something like, 600 plus thousand deliveries a day. They had acquired Urban Spoon some time ago in the US. They're like 53 countries or something big like that. Gojek's actually ride hailing. So they are like Uber, started off in Indonesia, now in 5 or 6 countries, more than 1 million rides a day. It's not just cabs, but it's also, pillion scooter rides, sort of motorcycle rides in that side of the world. So we've seen massive growth. We have many consumer companies, hundreds of consumer companies as our customers. We've seen massive growth. And what I'm going to talk here about is what we've learned. We've been at this for more than 5 years, and it's all about customer lifecycle management. And we'll see some action that we've learned actually from these massive giants, fast-growing consumer businesses. So I don't know, everybody here probably has heard these terms of acquire, retain, monetize, reward, reactivate your users. This is a very, very traditional life cycle stages, if you will. This is also, it's almost inactionable. Everybody knows you got to retain your users, but who do you retain? Everybody knows you got to monetize your users, whether you're a subscription-driven app, an ad-driven app, a pay for, no matter what app you are, you got to monetize your users. But you don't know whom to monetize. Everybody knows you got to reward your users, but you don't know whom to reward. So traditional lifecycle management in theory is nice. But what I'm going to tell you now is how this gets action with the right segments of people. So that's where RFM comes in. Like people, how many here have just heard of RFM or do any bit of recency, frequency, monetization analysis on your users? So if you run a consumer app, recency and frequency of your users tells you a massive amount of information about them. Recency is how recently have you seen them, right? Did you see them a day ago, a week ago, a few hours ago, a year ago? Because the whole point is if you know the recency, if I talk to you every day, it's a different conversation. If I haven't seen you just as a person for a year, it's a different conversation. So recency tells you a lot about how to talk to your users, essentially. Frequency is another very, very simple concept. And frequency is how often did I see you in a given period of time. So did I see you 5 times in the year? Did I see you like 57 times in the year? Did I see you 150 times in the year? So of course, it depends on the app. So if you're a media, news site or a streaming app, there's a lot of frequency. You come, you watch shows, things like that. And recency is good, but if it starts dropping, you can work on it. So the idea with recency and frequency is you take any user action that's important to you, your business. You can take multiple of them. So launching the app. So you just, based on launching the app, if you calculate recency of all your user base, you calculate frequency of all your user base, put it on a sort of a graph like this, where the y-axis is a frequency score, which is normalized, it's number of times, but you take your distribution of your users, normalize it on a score from 0 to 5, and plot them on the y-axis. And recency score, you do the same thing. It's a week, it's a day, whatever, but you take your user distribution of recency and plot it on a scale, normalize it to 0 to 5, plot it on the x-axis. And suddenly, the top right-hand guys are your most frequent users and your most recent users, also what RFM calls as your champion users. So if you look at this scale, and it's very, very easy, data scientists, I mean, this is an old concept, RFM. It's not like Clevertap's concept or my concept or something. There's a lot of theory on this. But it's been so hard to compute. It's a data science thing that people take days and weeks to sort of compute it for their user base, that it's really not been used so far. We deliver it out of the box. I mean, you just click, 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 and you get your grid like this. And it's very interesting because you go champions are champions, that's fine. But as you go on the left, you see cannot lose them. So these guys are a high frequency score, meaning you've seen them enough over the period of the last 6 months or a year or whatever you're measuring, but the recency has started to drop to like ones and zeros. So these become your, I don't want to lose them users. Way down there, sort of the bottom left corner are your hibernating users, in the sense no more frequency, no more recency. They've sort of gone to sleep, if you will. So just plotting your users like this in recency, frequency, and sort of seeing what how they are distributed is massively, I mean, it's just being so much used in fast-growing mobile apps that it's not even funny, and it's helping a lot. I mean, the basic concept is as you see recency dropping, you want to get it back, right? You want to try to find a way to get these users back. If you see frequency dropping, you want to try to find a way to get this, again, that improved over time. So now the magic really happens when you take your traditional lifecycle stages and overlay it with these user segments, if you will, to decide what to do with them. So I'll talk about acquiring new users in just a second. But if you look at retain, like who are the users you want to retain are basically your new users. New users are this sort of bottom segment here. They are the most recent, but they don't have any frequency, meaning you don't know about them. They're like brand new users who've come to your site. You don't have a frequency record, so it's kind of zero, and that identifies your new customers. So you work your retain as your lifecycle stage focused on new users. Monetize. So you want to monetize your promising users or your potential loyalists. If you look at the grid, it's about like up here, the green is promising, and your loyal customers are sort of, just on the left of champions. So these are high frequency, very high recency, and it's in that little spectrum, these two diagonal. And I'll talk about some campaign ideas or like engagement ideas, if you will, on how to monetize these people. But if you can identify these people, those are the people you want to sort of monetize. A brand new user, you try to tell him to like subscribe for like $200 a year or whatever your product is. It's not going to be that easy, right? But if these are your loyalists, these are people playing with it, and so on, and you can try to monetize them. If you're an e-commerce app, there's a lot of stuff people do here to like bundle deals to increase value and things like that, because these are your loyalists. They're coming there, high frequency, high recency. They hang out on your mobile apps or your websites, and those are the people you want to push. You want to reward your champions and loyal customers. You obviously want to make them feel good, make them feel more championish. If you look at that, those are the top two there, high frequency, the highest frequency and the highest recency, if you will, across your user base. And then you can run a bunch of reactivation campaigns, if you will, on a whole bunch of segments, right? Cannot lose them, at risk, hibernating, needs attention, and about to sleep. And that basically makes up that left-hand side of this RFM grid for your user base. And again, like, it's slightly different tactics. The idea of breaking it into these segments is that you can use different tactics. If you look at cannot lose them, they're very, very high frequent. They used to be very high frequent, right? And recency is dropped off. And your way of engaging, re-engaging them or reactivating them could be very different from people who've totally gone to sleep. People who've totally gone to sleep, you got to recommend content, you got to do something else to try to win back. It's almost like a win back. And you can do some different strategies with people there, right? So now you come to acquisition, and there's, like you heard, I don't know how many of you were here for the panel here, just before this, but even throughout the day, there's a lot of, everybody's doing good ad targeting, right? Lookalike, Facebook lookalike audiences, Google, Twitter, everybody's doing these like lookalikes. And what you want to do is to take your best segment of users, which are really these four, the promising, the potential loyalists, loyal customers, and champions, put them into a Facebook lookalike audiences campaign and try to acquire those kind of people for your app downloads and so on. So you want to, so if you look at this segment, right, your champion users, they've established themselves as champions in your app, in your service, in your website. So why not find lookalikes for them? Your chances are much better. So again, like the traditional RFM, life cycle stages of acquisition, retention, monetization. I mean, everybody knows this. I'm sure everybody wants, I can do a raise of hands here of who wants to do better life cycle management with their users. But the fact is, it's just not easy. It's just a lot of things, it's just not actionable in a way that you want to action it. And a simple segmentation technique like RFM makes it actionable. And it breaks down your user base into multiple segments that you can really focus on what to do with them. The whole thing is, like you do it automatically in the sense that life is going on, right? New users are coming in. Some of them become champions right away, or some of them become champions in a matter of few weeks or few days, depending on what your app is about. And that's okay. And as they go through that journey, they just get the treatment of their appropriate stage. So people are like dropping out from champions, going into like needs attention, maybe going into hibernation. And as they're down, sort of falling down the engagement ladder, so to speak, they get the treatment that you've set up for, for that appropriate life cycle stage. So it's like you create, I mean, these are 10 segments. And people start with like 5. People start with like the extreme corners, right? You do new customers, you do champions, you do cannot lose them, you do hibernating, and you need the one in the center, which is needs attention. And you start with those 5, and you just figure out like your automation to deal with that segment. What do you tell somebody who's hibernating, And we'll talk about some ideas and so on. Like that. So just to give you a sense of ideas, this is very, very small, but marketers in the group or retention teams, growth teams are actually much, much more creative than we are as sort of product companies in this. But, I mean, I'm just randomly, I'm not going to read this out, but cannot lose them, right? That's who you go after with discounts, credits, with like even newsletters of best-selling products and so on, because these are people who used to be very active, showed a lot of frequency within your apps and so on, and now are not, right? Monetizing potential loyalists. This is what I was slightly talking about, right? Bundle deals for higher values. So people do this, people who bought this also bought this, or buy A plus B and you get a little bit of discount and all of that stuff. And these are your loyal customers, so you know that they have some sort of an attachment with your brand, and that's where you can try to increase the cart size in an e-commerce way. But if your content consumption app, if your ride-hailing app, whatever, like those are the guys who you need to get to do more rides with, or sell to a subscription plan that's maybe a multi-year plan instead of an annual plan or whatever, that kind of thing. So again, my whole point here is that just think of users going across this life cycle. Every individual today has a different journey. It's so competitive out there that they have many choices. I don't have to do Uber. I can do like Lyft. I can do other things. And no matter what segment you look at, that is the fact. And we've seen massive growth, especially in mobile-first apps or services when they do good lifecycle management. And it really all comes to segmentation in a way that works. Everybody's used to this, right? And this is what I was talking about. These are like, journeys. And again, it's in our product, ready to use, and so on. This is where you orchestrate what you want to do with your, this is where you orchestrate, campaigns like this, right? The entry criteria for a journey, what we call a journey, could be the fact that you're in a segment, or you just dropped in, or you just became a champion. And that's where the journey for a champion begins. I get an extra little goodie, I get some concierge service, I get a discount, I get my 10th meal free, whatever your service is. Again, it's hard to talk about it generically, but I'm happy. We have a booth down there, happy to talk about specific apps and specific use cases. But there's a lot of good work you can do if you say, I want to treat my champions as champions. I want to treat my at-risk users knowing that they are at risk. And that's really the benefit of this whole thing. The lifecycle stages of customer lifecycle management, which is the ability to market to people knowing their stage in life, is the biggest, becomes suddenly actionable if you overlay some segment on it. And RFM we've seen is a very, very, relatively simple, but very, very powerful way really to get results out of it. It makes it 100% automated. And I said, you don't have to do anything. There's no temporary campaign you're running for like a week or a month or 2 months, right? You can A/B test your whole campaign, different steps in it, because it's a whole journey. 3 days later, you're doing something. 5 days later, you're doing something, recommending some piece of content, so you've sort of built out this journey, if you will, for weeks or months, and you can obviously A/B test those. But that's it. Once you have an at-risk journey, you have an at-risk journey. Every user who falls into that segment becomes part of that journey, goes through that experience, which you'll keep on improving over time. But you don't have to do anything else. It's sort of a one-time. It sort of works very. It's just automated, right? It's very flexible in the sense that the third big advantage here is that RFM is, like I said, is based on one single event, right? So launching an app could be just that one single user action that you're doing your RFM analysis on. But your purchases, somebody made a purchase in your app, could be another action that you're doing RFM on, meaning it's not necessary that your champion purchases are also your champion sort of app launchers. Comments and reviews are a good thing. Your champion purchases might not be your champion reviewers. So you might want to make your champion purchases, push them towards, sort of writing the first review kind of a thing. So it's very, very flexible because you have multiple user actions of importance to your apps and your services, and it just makes it you can use the champion of one into the other. You can maybe use the at-risk of one particular action to become something else by pushing another action that might be. Again, happy to talk about specific app use cases or specific sort of vertical use cases if you want. And it learns and adapts to your growth, because the whole calculation of RFM, if you do it well, it's based on the distribution within your audience. So if your overall recency scores, right, range from sort of weeks to months, meaning somebody I've seen 3 weeks later. I'm a diamond jeweler, for example. So I see people people make purchases, once in 5 years or 10 years or whatever, right? So my recency is not like a news app where people come in 3 times a day or 5 times a day. But the fact is you take all your user base and you find your recency distribution, and that's what you normalize into a score of 0 to 5. So as your whole user base is improving, so you do good lifecycle management, we've seen direct impact on profitability and lifetime value of users, right? And as that's increasing and getting better and better, your RFM basis is changing. What the champion who used to be people I've seen a week ago might now be people I've seen an hour ago, right? Because it still has to be distributed within 5. So it learns, it adapts if you get if you do it well. And that's important. You cannot sit and compute lifecycle stages that take weeks and months to compute and then apply something. It has to be this real dynamic, live, real-time system that works as users are going.
So now we have a couple questions from the audience.
Happy to take it. I'm done with my talk, actually.
Okay, great. So the first is, in an evolving public policy landscape, do you see the app marketplace growing?
I certainly see it growing. We've grown tremendously. We are an American company. I'm from India, born and brought up. we've seen a massive growth in that side of the world. Like the East is growing like so much. India, Southeast Asia, countries like Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, Vietnam, Korea, Europe. So I definitely see it growing. I mean, this is a pendulum that always swings, right? You do light apps, you do heavy apps, but I just think that there's a lot of app growth that the US will catch up to very, very soon.
Well, there was one other question. Where does push messaging come into play and its impact on visits, assuming the consumer has opted into them?
Yeah. So push messaging is one of the strongest means to get people back into your app, right? Because you can put it, when the person's not in the app, and use it to pull people into the app. Now, the trick with push notifications is that if you use it for like spam or offers and it's just like you just push crap, it's a bad thing. But who doesn't want the push notification saying, hey, my Uber is 5 minutes away, right, that I booked? You're waiting for that thing. I mean, and imagine that message coming 5 minutes after your cab has come. That's not good. So push notifications, hey, your gate has changed from 73 to like 85, flight gate. And I want that. My cab's 5 minutes away. My lunch order has just left the kitchen and I get it there. So people talk about, at least in the email world, transactional emails and promotional emails. If you are really use push notification as more of a transactional channel, it's actually awesomely powerful. It keeps your brand at the top of mind. It pulls people back into the app because the details are in the big page, right? Kind of a thing. So there's a lot of stuff there. It's good.
Terrific. Well, everyone, let's give a warm round of applause to Sunil.
Thank you.
And thank you very much for being with us today. Thank you.